good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Candidates Forum, presented as a public service by the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce, Radio Central, and today's News Herald. I'm your moderator, Paul LaVoie, and we are coming to you live from the City Council chambers in Lake Havasu City, where there's very, very limited access. So tonight we have 6 candidates vying for 3 available seats on the Lake Havasu City Council, and we also have the 2 candidates for Mojave County Sheriff. Tonight's format starts with the council candidates, who will each have a 1-minute introduction. That will be followed by a series of questions with each answer limited to 90 seconds. The candidates for Mojave County Sheriff will go by the same format, each with a 60-second introduction again and 90 seconds to answer each question. We also have our timekeepers in the audience, socially distanced of course, Lisa Kruger and Kathy Tippett from the Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce. So prior to the event, the candidates picked numbers that determined the order of their presentations and the order of each question that they'll be answering. And going first tonight is incumbent Councilman Gordon Grote. Gordon?
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur LaVoie. Es una magnífica oportunidad. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes para la oportunidad para hablar contigo esta noche. I say that, and you might be wondering, why is he doing that? Because I'm here as a person who really cares about the community, and I mean all of the community. Remember, about 20 to 25% of our residents are Hispanic. So, you're going to ask for a list of qualifications. Well, I'm not going to get up on a podium and say, well, I'm qualified in this regard and I'm qualified in that regard. People know who I am, and they know what my qualifications are, and they know that I've done this job successfully for them, and they know that I care very deeply about the people. That, at the end of the day, is the very most important qualification I think of for any public office. Do you really care about your people? Do you really care about your community? Do you want what's best for everybody? Are you willing to listen to them? Are you willing to do what they want? That's a democratic process. That's what I'm all about. My name is Gordon Grote.
All right, next up we have candidate David Jaramillo. David.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Jaramillo. I've been in town for 32 years. Absolutely love my town. Like Anne-Marie Ward said, and it made a lot of sense, I have stake in this town. My heart goes out to my town. I've raised my 4 children here. I have a beautiful wife of 17 years, and I'll keep it short. My main goal for running is if my children ever leave this town for any reason, I want them to come back. I want to be able to raise my kids, my grandkids. I want to see your guys' kids and grandkids here as well, and we need a prosperous community, and hopefully I can help out with that. Thank you guys so much.
And thank you. Nancy Campbell's up next with her opening statement. Nancy.
Hello, I'm Nancy Campbell, and I'm running for Lake Havasu City Council. I'm running for your family and for mine, because we have a legacy behind us and a future we need to protect. As a longtime resident of Lake Havasu City, I graduated from Lake Havasu High School. Shortly after high school, I married my husband, Chip Campbell, of 35 years. Together, we raised 3 children here, and now they are raising their children here. I have always been an overachiever. I was married, had 3 children, attended college, designed and built my first home, and pulled my first business license at the age of 26. As a result-driven businesswoman, I want to take my expertise to help apply it to government. From event planning to construction, hospitality, including Rotarian of the Year, Arizona's outstanding businesswoman, I have qualifications to help move Lake Havasu City forward in a positive direction. Remember, vote Campbell for council August 4th. It's a concrete decision we'll all be proud of. Wow, that was close.
Right on the money. Oh, all right, drawing the number 4 spot is David Lane, incumbent. David.
Good evening, everyone. This is David Lane, the current city council member with the Lake Havasu City Council, and for the last 2 years serving as your vice mayor here in Lake Havasu City. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve you over the last 4 years. As part of the team here in Lake Havasu, we've got a lot of things accomplished, and we have many more things coming forward that we need to continue working on. As a member of the Tri-City Council, we're working in the entire region, not just here in the city. I'm also the chair of the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System for both the police and fire boards. I sit on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Rural Transportation Advisory Council, and the liaison for the Chamber of Commerce. I want to continue serving you, the people, in this capacity, and to make sure that we're moving this city forward in a positive way. So thank you, and remember to vote David Lane, Lake Havasu City Council.
Okay, thank you, David. Number 5, candidate Cameron Moses. Cameron.
Thank you, Paul. Like you said, my name's Cameron Moses. I'm a Lake Havasu High School graduate, University of Arizona alumni, and I've had a business here in town for about 15 years now. I'm a proud father of 2 beautiful little girls, and I met my wife here as well. I'm running because I want to bring a type of steady leadership to the council, one where we listen to all voices, and we really strive to progress, move the city forward in a positive manner with responsible growth. So I really appreciate everyone's time. My name is Cameron Moses. I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, and I'm here to serve. Thank you.
And thank you. And number 6, but he thinks it's number 9, is Mike Bonney. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. My name is Mike Bonney, and I want to make something perfectly clear right now. I am not running for city council. I'm a candidate for city council. At my age, I don't run for anything anymore. It's a slow stroll. Qualifications, I believe I bring with me 40 years of accounting experience. I served on city council in Forest Park, Ohio for 4 years, where I was the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, among other things. And that, along with the service that I have provided here locally, Chamber of Commerce, Hospitality Association, the list goes on. And I got the 22nd, so I'll wrap it up. Hi, Lisa. Sorry. But my experience in governmental accounting speaks a lot. I firmly believe that actions speak much louder than words do. And with that, I like Mike.
Okay, we'll go to the questions now, and these are 90-second answers. 90 seconds. The first question is both for incumbents and for challengers. So if you're an incumbent, here's your question. What issues have you wanted to bring to the table that have not been addressed during your previous terms? Now for challengers, what would you like to see changed with regard to city government? Gordon Groats first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. So that's an interesting question. A lot of the issues that I really wanted to focus on during the first term, in particular secondary water supply, ramping up public health, and taking care of our police and fire departments. Those are fantastic things to do, but we have solid plans underway for that. So in the second term, I think what we need to focus on will be additional resources for our water and wastewater, public works, and then, of course, maintaining infrastructure, working with the balanced budget. But more importantly, for me personally, I've spent probably 8 or 10 years in economic development, tourism and economic development. It's one of the things I've really enjoyed doing. I was the CEO of an inland port, and so on and so forth. When you first get elected to council, that's kind of the exquisite portfolio everybody wants. So, of course, when I first got elected here, I wasn't going to be given a sniff at that portfolio. I finally got a hold of that in my last year, and I am so excited because working with the Partnership for Economic Development will give me an opportunity to leverage my experience to move the city forward to get the kind of high-paying jobs with good benefits that people in our community need. And those jobs can help to solve a lot of the other issues that we have as a community. So that's really the main thing that I would like to do going forward. And thank you very much for the question. And it's a good joy to be here on KNST 106.3 Voice of the Free. More information is available on votegroat.com.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon. David Jaramillo, do you need the question repeated? The question for challengers. What would you like to see changed with regard to city government? And you have 90 seconds.
Not being in this field at all, you don't go to college to be a city council member. But what I'd like to see in this town and being around these great people and learning from them is the secondary water supply. It's a hot town, a very hot town. The other day, I believe, it hit 125 degrees. So without water in a hot town, you're nothing. I would love love to see that happen. You know, the other thing that I see in town is I see a lot of our fire department police officers leave town. And I don't like to see that. A lot of them are my friends, and a lot of them pursue jobs elsewhere, California, Vegas. Sometimes they double their money. I don't blame them for that. But I would like to see my friends, employees, city employees, to stay here in town and be able to enjoy this great town.
Nancy Campbell, you're next. What would you like to see changed with regard to city government?
Well, I'm a businesswoman, as I've said before, and I'm a designer, and I've built a lot of homes. And the very first thing I do is when I move from one house to another house, I usually pack up my clothes and organize stuff, take a bunch of stuff to Salvation Army and clean things out so I can make a good executive decision on what I'm going to need when I build the next home. A big topic right now is a brand new courthouse. After I reviewed miles and miles and miles of records in storages, miles long, it's crazy. The first thing I would like to see done is an upgraded courthouse record system and to streamline all those records so that before we even consider what kind of courthouse we need, when, and where.
Okay, thank you. Up next is incumbent David Lane. David, do you need the question repeated?
No, sir. Thank you very much. Once again, this is David Lane, a current city council member. So what issues have I wanted to bring to the table, which was the question for incumbents? There are no issues that I have not brought to the table. If I had left things sitting out there and not discussed them in the past, I wouldn't have been doing my job. Anybody that knows me knows. If I think something, I'm going to say something. All the issues that I think need to be brought forward, I've brought forward, and we will continue. You've got a great team now on the city council. Every single person on the council cares deeply about this city. And I got to say, the same with all the people that are sitting up here now that are running for office. They all care deeply about this city, and they're all running for the right reasons. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But as a team, we'll continue working on all the issues that we have. But to answer your question again, everything that needs to be brought to the table has been. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron Moses.
Thank you. I'm going to take the more philosophical approach on this, and an observation that I've made when I go to coffee with the mayor or talk with different citizens and see them interact with our elected officials, there seems to be a feeling of when they bring up something like, oh, I don't know, maybe school's opening or the roads are too rough or vacation rentals are an issue. I get this feeling of the person is saying, that's not my job. And in my place of work, there's no such thing as that's not my job. So as a representative, I want those people to know that they'll be listened to, and I will honestly follow through and make it a very valid attempt to see if we can remedy those things.
Okay, thank you, Cameron. Mike Bonney, you're up next.
Thank you. Yes, this is Mike Bonney, candidate for City Council. I'm going to approach this from a financial aspect. The one thing I would like to see council address is adding an agenda item to the second meeting of every month where the financial statements, at least in the general fund, are reviewed and approved by the city council. By doing so, it adds to the transparency and it keeps the general public informed about where the city stands with regards to the budget. I think that's very important in these trying times. We know we have some financial constraints, so we need to keep our eye closely on that and make adjustments going forward. And that's really all that I would care to do.
Okay, we're going to go to the second question. And by the way, the number of questions we have tonight will depend on time constraints. We do have roughly an hour, but like I said, we're radio, so we can play with that. All right, second question, and David Jaramillo, you're going to go first. How should the city change its spending to reflect declining revenues? And we need you to bring your microphone just a little bit closer to you before you open that back up. And again, how should the city, this is for all candidates, how should the city change its spending to reflect declining revenues? Go ahead.
Okay, well, like I said earlier, you know, this is my first time going at it. There's a learning curve to this. Coming at this as like the average Joe, being surrounded by these good people here. Mike Bonney is a numbers guy, but I was able to talk with him, Vice Mayor Lane. You know, Cal, they've all had open door policies, which I love. You know, wow, I just lost it. Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'll make it
How
short.
should the city change its spending to reflect declining revenues?
Oh, I think what they're doing right now is fine. I don't see any declining revenues that I know of right now with COVID hitting and seeing an influx of people coming into town. All of a sudden, boom, we have a ton of money coming into town. I see the small businesses prospering, and I think that's great. And right now, we're in a very unique situation, and I think that we should harness that and take advantage of it right now. But other than that, I see the city doing great things.
Okay, Nancy Campbell, do you need the question repeated?
No, I understand.
Okay.
Right now, I do love the direction that they're going. It sounds like they have Plan A and Plan B, and I'm assuming Plan C and D, and none of us really actually knows what the future lies at all. And if anybody up here says they know exactly what tomorrow or a year from now looks like, they're absolutely not telling the truth. So the bottom line is this. It only sounds logical to me to stop all want spending. Only look at needs, and needs to me is our roads and infrastructure and maintenance and water and our staff, absolutely our staff. These are things we have to take care of. The rest definitely gets completely on, put the brakes on it, because just like any of us, if we want to take a vacation or do something later, the first thing we do is no more, we're not going out to eat, we're not spending money, we're not going to do X, Y, Z to get the final result. So right now, I think everybody in the city is having to adjust their finances the same way the city needs to, and it just makes logical sense to stop any wants and only deal with needs. Thank you.
David Lane, how should the city change its spending to reflect declining revenues?
Thank you. Once again, this is David Lane, and I keep repeating that because we are on the radio, and so they cannot see us, and so they can put a name with the voice. We really don't have declining revenues at the present time. Our dollars just don't go as far as they used to go. Anybody here been to the store lately? You know that your dollar's not going as far as it used to. So what we have to do is ensure that we always have the right amount of dollars in the budget for the spending that we're going to do. And that means a balanced budget. So our city manager, Mr. Knudsen, and our city staff put together a balanced budget every single year. And we've always had a balanced budget. Should we have declining revenues? And I will tell you, my concern right now is not for this year, but for next year. We don't know what's going to happen. Are all of our winter residents going to come back, or are they not going to come back? There's been a lot of people saying that maybe out-of-state residents or visitors shouldn't be coming here, which will decline our revenue. When that bridge comes, we'll have to cross it then. Right now, we do have, as Ms. Campbell said, a Plan A and a Plan B, so that should we have declining revenues, we'll be able to keep our balanced budget. Should we have the revenues coming in that we want, then we'll be able to utilize those resources as we have them, but we're doing just fine right now.
Okay, 5 seconds to spare, by the way. Cameron Moses.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Cameron. We do have a little uncertainty with the revenues going forward, and the problem is we don't. It's hard to know exactly where we stand right now because the reporting process of our incomes are delayed a few months. So I agree with the council and the city manager's approach in having the Plan B budget. I think as we get a better picture, we can maybe address some of those Plan B items. I think flexibility for that will be key because I don't think we can afford to, as a good friend of mine says, kick the can down the road on some of these items, and it's something that there's a lot of items on there that we will need to address if we can in a responsible manner. I will also say this, though. I don't think we can afford to wait much longer on our employees of taking care of the staff of Lake Havasu, both fire, police, and all of our regular city employees. Investing in people is never a bad idea, But to make sure that they're getting taken care of, I think it would be very important. I'd rather see that done sooner rather than later, because we can't afford to lose any more. So I appreciate your time.
Okay, Mike Bonney.
Yes, Mike Bonney again for all those listening on the radio. The budget hasn't been adjusted since the days of the recession. So from a budgeting standpoint, the city is in good shape. It is performing well. As has been stated by the Vice Mayor and Cameron, the positional analysis is in play. It will be passed most likely in the next 3 months, probably in the first quarter, as part of Plan B. So we need to continue on the path that we have been on. We have a strong budget, as the Vice Mayor indicated, and cutting spending in this time is not a good idea. We're at bare bones right now, so I wouldn't change anything if I get elected. So with that, that would be all I have to say.
Thanks, Mike. Gordon Grote, 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. We'll just make more money off of tourists, and we'll cut our city manager's salary way back. You should see the look on his face. He's in the room. I'm only kidding. I'm very proud that in all the years I've ever been on council, just now working on my 8th year, never actually had to pass tax raises. And the reason for that is I've been lucky enough to work with great people on council, like the people here. And they have always focused on what Ms. Campbell said. There's a difference between need to have and have to have. So I've always focused on those things that are existential. Secondary water supply. Well, if you don't have water, nothing else matters. Why do we actually form government? Well, we want to be able, if we dial 911 to have public safety, we want a paramedic to show up within 4 minutes, I hope, because after 4 minutes you start getting permanent brain damage. If you don't have oxygen, everybody knows that's a thing with me. If we need a police officer, we call 911, we want them to show up. We want all that to happen. We want our streets to be in good condition. We need, when we turn on the water or flush the toilets, all that has to work. Those are your need to haves. The want to haves, those get in line afterwards. And when you have a budget that you have fiscal constraints on, you can pick and choose those want to haves. As a city, we've been able to put a lot of want to haves in there. We may be able to do less, but I think our level of service is very good and our people are happy.
In my house, we call that a want and need. All right, we're going to take a short break, a 2-minute break for those listening on the radio or possibly streaming or watching live on Channel 4. You're listening to the Candidates Forum, and it's presented as a public service by the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce, Radio Central, and today's News Herald. I'm Paul LaVoie. We'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to our Candidates Forum presented by the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce, Radio Central, and the Today's News Herald. I don't know if I should have an applause button up here or what. Thank you. Thank you. And we're also streaming live on Facebook, so if you want to go to the KNTR Facebook page, you can see us streaming live there. Our third question, and we will start with Nancy Campbell. The Irrigation and Drainage District is set to expire in about 2 years. What do you think the city should do to replace the lost revenue? Nancy.
Well, thank you for this question. It's been a hot topic for sure. Everybody's been talking about it, and I like it because I really sat down when I read through all the budget, had some conversations with the mayor and the city manager, looked at all the different directions we could go. I did the typical businesswoman thing. I went home and I did the math in my head and calculations. So the bottom line is, as of last night or the night before, we ended up getting the final numbers. The IDD, which is the Irrigation and Drainage District, is a property tax that went into place over 30 years ago. It is something that moving forward is not an easy thing to just duplicate and keep going. The other problem with it that I see, it doesn't incorporate everybody that uses our water infrastructure. So that to me is a little bit of a problem. So what I have proposed to do, and I know I don't have much time, I'm going to make it short and sweet. I went in with 29,000 water meters. That's what we have in the city. If you take the 29,000 water meters and charge 50 cents a day, you pretty much almost recoup our whole loss. But I'll tell you what, if we go in at 65 cents a day, that will give us an additional $1 million worth of infrastructure now. I think that's incredibly important to us. So moving forward, I would like you to get your property taxes back, a total of $268 an acre, and then let's look at a flat tax of only 50 to 65 cents a day. Thank you much. Campbell for council.
David Lane, what's your solution to the IDD?
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. To be quite honest, we don't have a solution for the IDD at this present time. We started talking about this now because we don't want to be the 7 people sitting up here telling the residents of the city, this is what you're gonna do. We want to have a conversation with the residents of the city so they can tell us, this is what we want you to do. So it gives us the opportunity to not just talk about the IDD, but let's talk about the entire freshwater system that we have as a whole. So we can talk about winter water averaging, we can talk about water rates, we can talk about everything that has to do with fresh water here in the city and decide as a community, not as a council, but as a community, what is it that we would like to do going forward. And so we brought this up now. We didn't wait till the very last minute and say, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? This is the oldest taxing district in the entire city. That's how the city was originally formed as a drainage district. It was supposed to go away in 1978 when the city was incorporated. But as to use a term that Mr. Moses used earlier, it was kicked down the road many, many times. Well, this council here doesn't kick things down the road. We are going to work on it now, and we're going to get it solved. And we're going to have the people of the city of Lake Havasu tell us what it is they want us to do, and then we'll go from there. And once again, for those on the radio, this is David Lane, your current city council member. Thank you.
Cameron Moses, do you need the question repeated?
No, I got it. Thank you very much. Originally, David is right. This is ultimately a question that nobody up here is going to be answering. It's something that the citizens of Lake Havasu are going to be answering. My hope was to get as much feedback from our citizens as possible and also tell them about all their options. While I was doing my research, I found a couple other districts that could possibly be implemented, and when I was presented those solutions to the public, overwhelmingly everybody wanted to create a new district. These options are not going to be viable going forward. As I researched deeper and deeper, as I noticed that the citizens were really wanting to go down that road, I found out that most districts, we're not going to be able to create it. The revitalization district that would allow us to recoup the $5.68 million hole that's going to be left in our water budget is not viable, as we'd need to be setting up an entirely different board to manage that. So that's not an option going forward. Now we have a couple of choices between just a flat rate usage fee or a quantity amount. So depending on how much you use. So it's going to be a choice going forward. I think the city also needs to do a utility rate study and take the whole thing into account to make sure that we're accomplishing all of our goals.
Okay. Mike Bonney.
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. Mike Bonney again. I don't have an answer for the IDD. I don't believe anyone in this room has an answer. Like so many have said before me, I'll say it again. I think this is something that we need to take to the residents, get their input. I would call for 2, maybe 3 Arizona Town Hall meetings to gather the information necessary to come to an informed decision. That's not the only revenue that is going to be lost, or there are other means of recovering those funds necessary to replace the IDD. So again, I would reach out to the residents via Arizona Town Hall. You can't do an online survey that has any meaning to it. You need to get the people in the room at the same time, the same place, and have a general discussion about the IDD as well as the other revenue sources. Thank you.
Okay, Gordon Grote, you're up next. 90 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. Good question. This is one of the very first things that came to my attention when I was elected. Going back 3 years, I went to visit the different department heads, and one of them was our finance director, the previous finance director. The one that I went to speak to, I think, has now moved on to be a city manager out in California. And I asked that very intelligent lady, I said, what do we need to be thinking about? What do we have coming ahead of us that we need to prepare for? And she looked at me and she said, the IDD, we're going to lose a little over $5.6 million a year in revenue, so we're going to have to figure out something to do. Now, remember, when we have a city that has the overall budget of about $144 million, that's about 1.6%, so there's no need to get our hair on fire. But we do need to plan responsibly, and we've done just that. Our city manager and our administrative team have done an amazing job of putting together a variety of different options. Think of it as a smorgasbord of options, if you will. And what we will do at that point, and we have been vetting that and refining that, is we will start having discussions with our city residents and see what it is they want to do. It's really not an enormous amount of money to make up. It is important to pay attention to it ahead of time. And so we're years ahead of the process, and we are paying attention to it now. This will be all taken into consideration as we look at our fiscal revenues and our expenditures in the next year or two. So I want to say that our city's done a great job of preparing for this, and we will be able to come up with the right options. One other thing to remember is that you have the option of cutting back services if you want to, but I don't think we're going to need to go there.
David Jaramillo?
Okay, I think we're all in agreement here. There isn't a solution. And being a simple man myself, I think we do need to take this to the public. I think we all need to come together. The city council needs to come together and try to find a solution to this. Whenever you hear raising taxes, nobody wants to hear that. We all know that it's a necessary evil, but that's the last thing that we want to do. I'd like to see some of this put on our out-of-town visitors. This is a very hard question, and I think we all need to come together collectively and do our part in this. And if we come together as a community, I think that we can solve this.
Okay, we're going to ask the next question. This comes from our Facebook page, from a listener and viewer of the stream. He says, I'm not going to name the person who asked it, but the question that should be asked when somebody talks about bringing in high-paying jobs, what jobs? What could be done here if you're going to help make this happen? And what is the target for those high-paying jobs? What industries are we talking about? David Lane, you're first.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. And for the person that sent that question in, thank you very much. Bringing in high-paying jobs, that is the requirement of the Partnership for Economic Development, which we are a part of. And it's something that every single municipality in this entire country is trying to do, is to attract those jobs that are going to give their residents additional pay. What's a good fit for here? Anybody that wants to come here and do business here, but do business the right way. So we are working. We work with the PED. There's several businesses right now that are in the process of looking at properties in different places to come here to Lake Havasu. But along with that is also a workforce. Do we have the workforce to support that? If you talk to the business owners here, I'm lucky enough to actually sit on the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce Board and get to meet a lot of our business owners. A lot of the problems that we're having right now with those business owners, they'll tell you, I can't find good employees. We need more employees. So it's not about bringing jobs all at once. It's about building the jobs up, building the workforce up, building the jobs up, building the workforce up. Do a little bit here and a little bit there and rise it to the top and to the level that we need to have. And we're doing that right now. So thank you.
All right, thank you, David. And a reminder to the listeners and the viewers out there, following this round of questions, we're going to take another break. Cameron Moses, you're next. How do we bring good, high-paying jobs to the area, and who should we target?
Well, I think we continue investing in our Partnership for Economic Development. They have a very unique approach of really focusing on the downtown district, which I agree. As we build up that could be the catalyst for the rest of the city to grow with it. I agree with David. I would echo his sentiments because I do own a business here in town. It is hard to find employees right now. And so it's not necessarily getting the businesses to come here. We need to invest in our foundation as a city of just creating the best environment we can, and then they'll come to us. As we lower cost of living, as we work on our amenities, as we continue to invest in our airport, and all of those things that make business in Lake Havasu viable, they'll start to come to us, and we can really grow from the inside out kind of deal. So thank you very much, Cameron Moses.
Thank you, Cameron. Mike Bonney.
Yes, Mike Bonney here again. It starts with education. During the Vision 2020, we recognized demographic starvation as one of the key issues in Lake Havasu City. If you don't grow it from inside and have those students remain here, stay here, start jobs, then the city will dry up and blow away. So it starts with demographic starvation, educating our youth to want to stay here, number one. Number two, PED does a fantastic job in recruiting and retaining businesses. And I agree with Vice Mayor Lane and Mr. Moses. The workforce is a big issue. This is a tourist city. Most of the jobs here are tourism related. We need to be innovative and overcome this problem and move forward. By doing so, then we will make great strides. I can't look at David. Sorry. A manufacturing company just signed a contract for the Kmart facility, bringing high-paying jobs. I know it's not the ideal location. There's a big controversy on that. I totally support that decision. And I think it'll be good for the cities in bringing high-paying jobs. Those people will buy homes if they can afford them, and we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Gordon Grote.
Thank you very much. This is a very important matter. Mr. Bonney mentioned the jobs that are proposed to come in at the Kmart building. Those are high-tech manufacturing jobs. That kind of manufacturing does not have an industrial footprint. There are no emissions of gases or other noxious fumes, and there are no emissions of chemicals or liquids that are noxious. It is absolutely in our wheelhouse, and people say that we don't have the kind of workforce that can make that happen. To that I say rubbish, flat out. I worked at a company, people say we can never have high manufacturing in this town. Well, I worked at a company where if you have an endoscopic procedure in this country, and in many countries around the world, we made the control boards that make that happen right here in Lake Havasu City. I worked, one of my favorite control boards was one used in electron microscopes, which are currently peeling back the mysteries of COVID-19. Electron microscopes, we make those here. We make the control boards that go into the little robots that pick the parts off the Amazon warehouse shelves. Short of a satellite clean room facility, we have the highest tech manufacturing already in the city. We have a workforce that is capable of delivering on that promise. And I would start saying, in addition to the company that we are already bringing in, which could bring us ultimately as many as 250 jobs with an average wage of $1,600 a week, we should draw a circle around Northern California and to some extent Southern California, where PG&E has an unstable electric supply, and recruit similar factories from there where they can be efficient in Lake Havasu.
David Jaramillo. High-paying jobs, how do we attract them?
Well, I think just talking to a lot of people and the city giving us great information, one of the things I think that hasn't been said is the census comes into effect. So if you're not out there counting your people, the state gives you X amount of dollars for how many people are in your town. People are leaving, not doing the census. I know that my wife, and I think everybody's wives, want a Target and an Olive Garden here. Olive Garden, like I've said, and I've talked with certain people, is in bankruptcy. They own Red Lobster, stuff like that. But I think we need to first and foremost participate in the census, because once we get those X amount of dollars, once we get those numbers of people that are in town, we're going to have Target and the Olive Gardens and the bigger places like that looking at us saying, hey, they have enough people to support this town. And that will actually make my life easier if there was a Target in Olive Garden here. So that's basically, the census, I think, plays a big part. Thank you.
Nancy Campbell.
Thank you. I love this question. It's basically a two-part question. Number one, we cannot get workforce here if we don't have workforce housing. And I think it's very important for developers and our city and probably our PED to step on board and start educating developers from out of city about the opportunity zones within Lake Havasu City and outside Lake Havasu City. These opportunity zones were designed in 2017 to help cities just like ours. The second part is that our local business people, contractors, the positional analysis that the city did was very important. I'm on the board of trustee for the Havasu Regional Hospital. We also had to do a positional analysis to send it up to corporate to let them know that we were paying some of our employees 30% below market value. So getting proper data out to corporations that are living in Lake Havasu, that we are no longer grouped in with Mojave County, and we have to start paying our employees. We are third generation going on fourth generation business here in town. The reason why we're not looking for staff is because we pay living wages, we pay insurance, we pay 401ks, we give them profit sharing, we do everything we can, including assisting them with housing if we have to keep our employees. So if our local businesses would do the same and step up and really understand that our employees are dire and we need to keep them here. Thank you much.
Thank you. And thank you so much to the viewer on our Facebook Live webcast who submitted that question. It's appreciated. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. I know I sound like Chuck Woolery, right? With a face for radio. All right, I'm Paul LaVoie. You're watching, listening to, and viewing the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce Radio Central and today's News Herald Candidates Forum on Radio Central. All right, back with more in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Candidates Forum, presented by the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce, Radio Central, and today's News Herald. I'm Paul LaVoie. We're going to go to another question off of the Facebook Live feed, and Cameron, you're going to be first. This will be 60 seconds, and then this question will be followed, this will be for everybody, and then everybody will have a closing statement. All right, many homes in the past few years have been bought and turned into short-term vacation rentals. Not only is this turning our neighborhoods into motel districts, it is driving the price of annual rentals for our working class sky high. What would you do to address both issues? Cameron, you're first.
Oh, man.
Tough question.
Yeah, well, I feel like I wrote it because this is one of the most important things to me. I think it's the most important thing to addressing our bigger problem of cost of living in Lake Havasu. I agree with them. The cost of living has exponentially grown over the last few years, and I think it's directly related to our vacation rental or short-term rental, commonly referred to. So I believe as we, as a city, start to, we've gotten some of our rights to govern back from the state. And this is really kind of a state legislature problem that we need to talk to some of our representatives, like Representative Biasucci or Regina or Senator Sonny. But as we start to get some of our legislative rights, I believe we strongly need to regulate and tax. Make sure, because essentially hotels are being run within neighborhoods. And we need to make sure they're being beholden to the same taxes and regulations as every other hotel within Lake Havasu. So if we get a handle on that, we'll be in a good spot as a city.
Okay, Mike Bonney.
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. Mike Bonney here. As Mr. Moses alluded to, this is a state issue. The city had an excellent ordinance in place. The state decided that that wasn't good enough, so they passed legislation basically taking control away from the cities. Beyond that, there's property owners' rights that are at play. If we get back control, the property owner has the right to do with that property as they see fit. So there's a fine balance there between the property owner's rights and trying to control and tax the hell out of it. I am strongly opposed to taxing anything, property or otherwise. So It is a state issue, and it is driving this cost up for sure, but it needs to be controlled better. Thank you.
Gordon Grote, 60 seconds.
Thank you. What Mr. Moses and Mr. Bonney just said, all of that is true and accurate. It is a state issue, and you have to actually deal with the cards that are dealt to you. Now, we as a city did have an ordinance, and it was working for us. The control then moved to the state, and the state legislature decides that they're going to make changes as appropriate and take the control away from us as a municipality, that's our reality. So what we can do is work with our state legislators, work with the organizations that will lobby on our behalf. That includes our Chamber of Commerce, by the way. We have a lot of very wonderful people who carry the message to Phoenix, as do we. And that's what we can do, and that's what we will do, and that's what we are doing. And we're fairly confident that we're going to have some pretty good solutions. It's too bad we couldn't ask Mr. Biasucci, who's now working our Facebook Live, to step in and give us a conversation on this, but he'll be the one who's in the driver's seat. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. Now we have full disclosure. All right, David Jaramillo.
Yeah, I think the same thing. It is a state issue, and like Mr. Grote said, we do need to work with the state. But it also too is property owners' right. And I do have vacation rentals by my house. It's nice to see people make money on it. Sometimes it's a problem though when your cul-de-sac or your street is completely packed. So it's a very hard question to answer, but I think at the end of the day, it is the property owner's right.
Nancy Campbell.
Hello. This is a great question, and it's also kind of a two-part question. First and foremost, I believe it's to have a good council person, they need to bring up creative new ideas to add to the constituents. And that's why sometimes I may sound like I'm throwing out ideas like I'm just keeping them to myself. I don't believe a good conversation starts unless you come out with new ideas to offer to constituents. First and foremost, I would like to look into it to see if our city council can actually get property owners to go through a local management company. So we have somebody local we can reach out to and hold them accountable, number one. Number two, if the people of Lake Havasu or the state of Arizona are really upset with the situation, they can go to the state and put a proposition on the ballot. Trust me, I've put propositions on ballots and it's not easy, but if you put this out to the voters, it would be up to the voters and you'd see where that lands. Thank you very much, Vote Campbell for council.
All right, we'll go to David Lane, and then everybody will have a chance to do a closing statement. David.
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. This is David Lane, your current city council member. And, this is an issue across the United States of America in every single tourist town that's out there. And as you've heard, that there are private property rights, but we've always had short-term rentals here, correct? There's a niche for it, and there is a need for it. But we do need to make some additional changes. We had a great ordinance here in 2016, and Governor Ducey actually is the one that took that away from us. And during this last year, working with our state legislators, such as Mr. Biasucci and Regina Cobb and Sonny Borelli in the Senate, we have great relationships with those people, and we were able to get some of that back. Working very closely with them this last year, we were going to get more back, but unfortunately, with the current crisis, that all got put on hold. So we are continuing to work on it. We will continue to work on it, and we will get it back to where we need to have it so you can have your private property and we can have short-term rentals both. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike Bonney will have a closing statement, and each person will have 60 seconds. Then we'll go to break. And for our radio audience, TV, web, and Facebook, we'll also, after the break, bring on the candidates for Mojave County Sheriff. Go ahead, Mike.
Can I start now, Mr. LaVoie?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Don't start the clock yet. Okay. Once again, I'm Mike Bonney, a candidate for City Council in Lake Havasu City. I come to this position with years of experience. I come from an accounting background. I know city budgeting. I'm the only candidate sitting here tonight that has the endorsement of Leo Biasucci, Regina Cobb, two of our state legislators. If I have an issue that the state is interfering in, I'm going to call both of those people and get direction. My finance background, as I said, puts me in a strong position to provide the necessary assistance to the city manager and staff, and they do an excellent job. Really, they really do a good job of putting the budget together, as well as all of the other things that make the city run. So I like Mike. Vote Mike Bonney for City Council August 4th.
Gordon Grote.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank today's News Herald and KNTR 106.3, 106.3, that rhymes in Spanish. I want to remind people that if they want to learn more about my positions, they can visit my website at www.votegrote.com. That's www.votegrote.com. I have 8 years of experience, and I think now more than ever, experience is very, very valuable in this particular position. I actually love what I do, and I love my people. I want you to know that I was proud to fight for all of you when I was in the United States Army, and I will certainly fight for you when I'm on this council. One of the things I'm proudest of is 8 years of service without any tax increases, but delivering solid infrastructure and a great place to live that everybody's proud of. So once again, I'd like to thank you for the grand opportunity you've given me already. Ask for your vote in the future, and remember, if you want to learn more, go to www.votegrote.com.
And David Jaramillo, closing statement.
Yeah, thank you again, you guys, for having us. It's been a wonderful opportunity to do this. Like I said, my name's Dave Jaramillo. I'm the average Joe running. I'm running on common sense. If there's something that I don't know, I will go to the city manager and the mayor, which they have a great open door policy. I'm willing to learn. I'm doing everything I can really to help our city here. The one other thing that I'm doing too is I'm funding my own campaign. So I don't want to owe anybody, have any ties or anything like that. I'm going to do the best that I can for our city. So like I said, if my family, my kids move out of town, I want them ultimately to come back home and be with mom and dad and be able to enjoy our family together. Thank you again.
Thank you. Nancy Campbell.
Hello, and again, thank you so much for putting this forum on tonight. I think more now than ever, the constituents of Lake Havasu City need to know who's running for city council and why. I pride myself on attention to detail and facts. I'm a problem solver, and I've been forced to think out of the box for decades. My ability to adapt and overcome has made me extraordinarily strong candidate. As we navigate through these ever-changing world, as a longtime resident, I understand what is successful for this city may not be successful in other cities, and vice versa. I am running for my family and for yours. This city needs the confidence that we need. Here we go. I just did what you just did. Here we go. And you. So here we go. This city needs the confidence that our children will not be priced out of their hometown, and they'll be able to thrive with lake living and opportunities as we all had. Thank you. Vote Campbell for council August 4th. It's a concrete decision we'll all be proud of.
Thank you. David Lane.
Thank you, Mr. LaVoie. Yes, this is David Lane once again. And first off, I do want to thank KNTR for putting this live on the radio, and for our city staff for making sure that it goes out on our city website. The Chamber of Commerce for hosting this and being great timekeepers over there. We sure appreciate it. I want to give a big shout out to all the other candidates that are sitting here. This is the last forum that we have, and this has been an extremely clean campaign. Nobody has ever talked trash about each other. We have all run on our own merits. And so I want to say thank you to you guys, and I truly appreciate it. As your current city council member, you all know who I am. You know that I have the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities to do this job and to continue with the teamwork that we've been doing. If any of you have any questions, you know, all you have to do is reach out and call me. My phone number is out there, 928-600-7191. That's my cell phone number. If you want to learn more, call me. Many of you already do. So thank you. Once again, this is David Lane. Thank you very much.
Okay, Cameron Moses.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for putting this on. I was very happy to hear that we're going to get in front of our people again so they can learn more about us. But my name is Cameron Moses. I've had the proud honor of serving on the Chamber of Commerce Board for quite some time. I've been a Rotarian for a long time. I was voted one of the young business leaders of Lake Havasu a few years back, feels like forever ago. And I started a charity in town called the Only Orchids Charity. I really care about Lake Havasu. It's been ingrained in me since I was a child that we have a responsibility to make sure where we live and what helps me support my family is taken care of, and that's the only reason I'm running. I have nothing to gain from this position. I'm just looking to do my part and make Lake Havasu the best it can be. I think I bring a steady leadership and a fresh perspective to some great leaders of ours, and I seek to understand. So if you want to know more about me, reach out, mosesforcouncil.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll take a short break. You're listening to and watching the Candidates Forum presented by the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce, Radio Central, and today's News Herald. We'll be back with incumbent Mojave County Sheriff Doug Schuster and Mike Ganusio, the challenger. Back with more in a moment. Stay with us. Here we go. Welcome back to the Candidates Forum, brought to you by Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce. Our timekeepers, by the way, Lisa Kruger and Kathy Tippett. Thank you so much tonight. We're also streaming live on Facebook, and we are on Channel 4. And, of course, KNTR 106.3 Voice of the Free. We have our two sheriff's candidates, incumbent Sheriff Doug Schuster and Mike Ganusio, the challenger. Each candidate is going to give us a 60-second opening statement, and we'll start with the challenger. Go ahead, Mike.
My name is Mike Ganusio. I'm a prior law enforcement officer with Mojave County. I was a deputy for about 8 years. I got hurt on the job, and now I'm a local business owner of Mojave County. I decided to run for sheriff's office for change. My main goal is to start community-oriented policing and get our communities back involved with our law enforcement. We have a disconnect we can repair, and I'm the man to do it. I'm married. I've been in Mojave County for about 20 years. Myself and my wife are really proud of the companies that we built, and we'd like to put a little bit more back into our community.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Schuster.
Thank you, Paul. Try that again. Thank you, Paul, and I want to thank you for having me. Thank you to the chamber, especially our timer. I tend to get a little long-winded, so I will pay attention. I am your sheriff. I'm Doug Schuster. Quick background, I have lived in Mojave County for a little over 40 years. All of that time right here in Lake Havasu. Married my high school sweetheart. We'll be celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary in a couple months. I have 3 wonderful children, with my first grandchild expected in 2 months, so the entire family's excited about that. I have been serving the citizens of Mojave County with the Sheriff's Office for the past 30 years, currently serving as your sheriff, finishing up the first term, and we've done some really remarkable things. I'm proud of the accomplishments that we've made, and I'm excited to be able to share some of that with you guys tonight, both listening and viewing. And I would ask that you check out my webpage, which is www.sheriffschuster.com, for my full qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you. And this will be the first of 3 questions, and then we'll have a closing statement. We'll start with Sheriff Schuster. This is a question from the KNTR Facebook page. He's watching the stream. I have paid close attention to the body camera issue, and while at the Women's Republican meeting, the current Sheriff Doug Schuster mentioned that his $300,000 quote on body cameras was last minute, and that was the reason for it being such a high quote. But it was also heard that when Mike Ganusio quoted $179,000 after calling the same company up, Doug Schuster was actually given his quote way back in March of 2020. I'm getting to the question, I promise. That same company said they had dealt with Doug Schuster in March 2020 and had already given him the quote he presented to the Board of Supervisors. Would anyone care to explain that? I'm just trying to figure out why it is taking so long for the deputies to be equipped with body cameras. Sorry for the long question. It's social media.
Okay.
Okay.
Completely understood. I think there's some misinformation out there, so let's start from the beginning. When I took office in 2017, we compiled a list of needs for the Sheriff's Office, and we prioritized those needs. You have to understand that the sheriff's office had not seen any significant growth in close to 30 years, so we were very pressed to and challenged to determine what the specific needs were. Now, body cameras are a wonderful instrument. They're a tool that are used by many agencies. Our focus was on personnel, and we've done very well in that aspect. I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's nice to have tools of the trade, cars, buildings, but if you don't have deputies to use or to put them in, it's kind of pointless. So body cameras were always on the radar, but we've been focused on getting our staff up to speed, which we are there now. And I can tell you that as of 2 months ago, we now have a waiting line 25 deep to get in as a deputy sheriff with our office, and that's something I'm very proud of. When it comes to the actual body cam question, that was raised by my opponent. Again, body cameras were not on my radar this year. I was not planning on it, but when the county came up with a budget source for it, I was approached and asked if we wanted to go down that road, and my response was simple. To the County Board of Supervisors, I said I would absolutely love to get body cameras if you have a funding source, as long as it does not impact my ability to continue adding the staff that I've been requesting. So I know I'm going to go over time. Give me 5 seconds, I'll close out. At that particular meeting, I was given very little leeway in coming up with a quote. That quote was obtained, and we're now looking into actual varied quotes to find out what's the best for our agency.
Thank you. It's a complicated issue. Mike Ganusio. Microphone?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep, absolutely.
Body cameras are a must. You know, that it was kind of a one direction question, but to put it how it actually was when I decided to run for sheriff's office, body cameras were a priority for me. I did obtain several bids, and yes, I did talk to, in March, the Axon company that Sheriff Schuster got his bid for about $300,000. I got a bid for $179,000, and he told me that they had already gotten a bid. So I continued to get bids after that were much lower, and I do believe we are completely full of deputies. The only issue I had was we could have used the money that we spent on our $300,000 airplane to actually outfit our deputies and actually have cameras on everyone and be done with it already.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and we'll start with you, Mike. There has been some disagreement over policing of public lands, particularly when it comes to illegal camping on Arizona State Trust lands in the Havasu area. What is the Sheriff's Office responsibility when it comes to policing illegal activities on state land located in Mojave County? How would you handle that?
Well, state and federal trust lands here are in the jurisdiction of the Sheriff's Office. They fall under state statute, and the sheriff is the highest ranking law official of the county. So in the absence of any other agency, he should be responsible for it. Havasu, a lot of the year isn't really high for call volume for the deputies because most of Havasu is taken care of through a PD, not the sheriff's office. So, and most of these state trust land areas are in the area the deputies are supposed to be patrolling. So I see no issue and don't understand why we don't have them in there doing it. It would be a must for me to take care of both of those issues.
Sheriff Schuster.
It's a great question. It's come up many times over the course of my career. State trust land does have its own division through the state that should monitor the activity on their property. They're the ones who issue the permits to use the property, and we aren't park rangers, we're deputy sheriffs. Now, yes, we have the authority to enforce on state trust, but I am not going to take away services from our taxpayers in our local areas to patrol the desert on behalf of state trust. If we get a criminal complaint, we investigate it. There's always concern on the camping issue. If they're legally camping, it's an issue that is outside of the sheriff's authority. I'm not going to arrest somebody who obtained a permit to legally camp on a piece of property. And we've been working with the state to try and develop better avenues to try and keep the encroachment from our city limits, because I, like everyone else, probably agree that it's an eyesore in certain areas. So there's still work to be done, but again, it's not our primary focus. Our job is to serve the citizens of Mojave County and their residential areas.
There, I did it. See, it's spreading. Our next question, relates to the current pandemic and something we're all familiar with. Should the sheriff's office enforce shutdown orders from the governor's office related to COVID-19? It's a little past that point, but we could be going there again. We're not sure. And we'll start with Sheriff Schuster.
Very good. You know, since the establishment of the COVID-19 pandemic guidelines, the guidelines quickly turned into responses from not just Arizona, but all state governors as to how they're going to address it within their state boundaries. We are walking a very fine line when a governor puts out an executive order that is contrary to the United States Constitution. He's putting law enforcement in a very, very difficult position. I have said from day one with the COVID pandemic that it's scary stuff. We all need to take measures to ensure our own personal safety, but I cannot in good conscience enforce any order that does not apply to all of our citizens. In fact, I had an opportunity to go on Tucker Carlson and make that very statement, and the point behind it is, and I did get some blowback in this regard. People say, Sheriff, what authority do you have to pick and choose which laws you want to enforce? Well, that's not what I'm doing. If a law applies to everybody, then that's an enforceable and legal law. If the law does not apply to everybody, and if it is selective by nature, and Havasu is a great example, we can't say to our local businesses that they need to shut down, lose income, while our hotels are full and people are flocking in here. There's a madness to that, and it's not something that we're going to tolerate. And I'll just close by saying the sheriff's job is to enforce the law. The sheriff's job is also to be a buffer between the citizens and government overreach.
Very good. Mike Ganusio.
I did it again. Yes, the COVID pandemic it's terrible, and I agree that if it falls under three things: moral, ethical, legal. You know, if it violates somebody's rights, you can't enforce it. You can't. The biggest thing you can do is walk around and push literature. Tell them, please. If you don't want to wear a mask, if you don't want to take the precautions, take at least respect for somebody else that wants the precautions. For those that are more susceptible to it, please stay home. Take all the precautions you can, but don't push it off on the rest of the community that doesn't want to do it if it does violate their rights. The sheriff should never step into that. That's not his job. So as long as it doesn't violate somebody's civil rights, I'd be good with it. But the moment that it does, I would not enforce it at all.
The next question, and then we'll go to the closing comments. The next question relates to the budget. I believe we're currently in budget talks with the county supervisors, and if you were to get a budget item through that was your pet project, what would it be? Mike.
Well, the first thing I'd put through is cameras. Every deputy needs to have one. They're not that expensive. It just depends on how elaborate of a plan that you have to have. So cameras would be my first thing that I would put on all of our deputies.
Anything else while we have time?
Well, more training. We need more training to get past to make sure we don't have any accusations of what we've seen across the country here. We have a lot of great guys. I'm not saying anybody's done anything wrong, but continued education and training is a must, especially at this time.
Okay, Sheriff Schuster.
My wish list, well, I put out a 10-year strategic plan, and if I could talk the Board of Supervisors into giving me 45 more deputy sheriffs, that's exactly what I would ask for. Again, ancillaries, body cameras, equipment, they're very important pieces of the puzzle, things we need to go after. And I want to clarify something in a sense, since I do have a little bit of time. When we're talking about a budget, and we just heard about the plane that we purchased for a little over $270,000, that's a one-time purchase. There's no ongoing cost with the exception of the maintenance that's already budgeted in. I can't use that funding for cameras, and I'll tell you why, because the fund it's purchased out of does not allow for that. Okay, that was taken out of RICO funding. RICO funding is dedicated for certain purchases. We've tried to get other equipment, including tasers and body cams through RICO, and it can't be done. You have to remember that the end of the year will come and there has to be an ongoing budget source to sustain that. So we're pretty good with our budget. I can tell you in my time in office, we have never gone over budget. We have taken advantage of a lot of budget savings to add positions, to add equipment that we wouldn't otherwise already have, including the plane. And I'm very pleased with the direction that we've gone in that regard. But yeah, deputies, I want more deputies, Paul.
Okay. And not just me, but the citizens of Mojave County.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll go to the closing comments section, and each candidate will have 60 seconds to convince the voters why they should vote for you for Mojave County Sheriff. And we'll start with the incumbent, Doug Schuster.
Okay, well, again, thanks for having me. I'll use my full 60 seconds and try not to speak too quickly. Again, I have been in service now for over 30 years with the Sheriff's Office. Everything that I have done in my life is to better my community in an attempt to make not just Lake Havasu, but all of Mojave County a safe and wonderful place to live, work, and raise a family. Since I've been in office, every promise, if you want to call it that I made in my initial campaign, we've accomplished. We've gone on to do so many other things like adding canine programs and fixing compression and fixing the morale at the Sheriff's Office. I have been so fortunate to have tremendous support from not only the public, but every law enforcement agency in Mojave County is officially endorsing me. That's the Lake Havasu Police Association, the Bullhead Fraternal Order of Police, my own deputy sheriffs. The Deputy Sheriff's Association said we want to keep our sheriff because he's doing what we need him to do. That speaks volumes to me. So thank you, Sheriff Doug Schuster, re-elect August 4th. Again, thanks for having me.
Mike Canusio, your closing statement.
Yes, the reason I'm running and the reason why you should vote for me, I'm about being fair with all communities. I'm about rural areas. And a lot of you that live in an area where there's a law enforcement agency, you don't know what goes on in a rural area. So please ask what goes on in your rural areas. We have several areas that haven't had law enforcement on regular patrol in years, and we have record numbers of deputies now. It's not a good excuse. There's no excuse. We have to take care of all of our communities. I am a money person. I'm a successful businessman. I'll find more programs. I'll cut budgets. I'll cut costs. My camera plan was $1.2 million cheaper than the sheriff's, and that's just the beginning. So on August 4th, help me make change and help me make Mojave County better and vote for Mike Canusio for sheriff. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who helped make this event possible. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow on the radio. And thanks to all the city council candidates, the two sheriff's candidates. I'm Paul LaVoie. Thanks to Leo Biasucci for helping with the streaming, and Lisa Kruger and Kathy Tippett, and and the city, of course. We have our city manager here as well, Jess Knudsen. Everybody have a safe and enjoyable evening, and again, we'll see you on the radio tomorrow. Thank you.